No acorns, and so far no water. So it's the afternoon of October the 12th. It's my second trip out into the St. Houston National Forest. I had an opportunity to get out in the afternoon, and I had to use the opportunity for scouting. I just didn't have the time to get out in the preseason to scout this area and figure out where I'm going to go. So on my first trip out, I picked a spot that I had been to or been in the area the year before. And you know, it's a pretty remote area. There wasn't a lot of hunting pressure back there. I just really thought there'd be tons of deer sign back there. But on my first trip out, I didn't see any real deer sign, none. In fact, what I lacked was water. I lacked food. I couldn't find any acorns out there, and I couldn't find any water. And I didn't see any deer, active deer sign out there at all. So I knew I needed to pick out a different spot altogether. So I chose a spot that I hadn't been to yet. And based on the training I received from Sean McVeigh on how to hunt whitetail deer with the topo maps. So I pulled out the topo map. My favorite tool is topo, and I just picked this new spot, and I said, you know, let's go out there, let's scout this. So October the 12th came around, and I had an opportunity to get out there and scout this property. It's bow season, so if I saw something, I was going to shoot it, but I knew that my primary focus for this trip was really scouting. So, you know, what I do is I pace off, you know, so that way I can, after the trip, I can come back, I can mark into topo what I saw out there, how far down the trail it was based on the number of paces. 477. Clearly distinguished trail here. Clearly distinguished. Right through there. .495 paces. I'm seeing lots of deer crossing right here. I get out there on October the 12th. It's a hot afternoon, and immediately what I'm discovering is I don't see any water and I don't see any food. No tree. I couldn't find a single tree down this trail that was dropping acorns. No oak tree dropping acorns. I mean, all of these thousands of acres and not one is dropping acorns. I mean, how is that even possible? But here's what I did see. Right where I thought I would see sign, you know, based on the topo map, where you could see where they would be naturally trying to cross, I saw lots of fresh scat. That was pretty exciting. That was kind of a rewarding experience as a rookie hunter to actually see evidence that corresponds to what you thought should be out there. 971. So it's not fresh. You know, I'm out there and I'm looking for the sign. I'm looking for the scat. I'm looking for the travel corridors, like the deer paths. I'm looking for water. I'm looking for acorns. I'm looking for where other hunters are. And this is another thing. So on October the 12th, when I'm hiking down this trail, I can see where other hunters have also been. In fact, there was one spot where these hunters are using toilet paper to mark their entry point into their little trail. I thought that was funny, you know. It's maybe all they had on them. They didn't have any flagging tape or fluorescent tacks or whatever. They just use some toilet paper to mark their entry point and to mark their trail. Pretty funny. I found another spot where a hunter had set up a trail camera, and so he actually took some bark off the tree right on the trail there, so he knew exactly where his camera was. His camera was only, I don't know, maybe 30 yards off the trail, so it wasn't very far off the trail. But that's another thing I try to look for. Where are the other hunters going to be? Because, there's a lot of hunting pressure out there, and you definitely want to give yourself an advantage. And I don't want to ruin their hunts, and I hope they wouldn't want to ruin mine. So I try to find a spot where I can get in and out quietly, and yet not be so close to some of the other hunters. So, in the last season, I didn't get out a whole lot. There was a couple of spots that I chose, and I went to them and I scoped them out, but I feel like I'm supposed to really push out into areas I've never been and really get off the trail more and do better about getting away from the common areas. It's sort of like picking the low-hanging fruit. It's just easy to go to the spots you love, the spots that are easy to get to. But here's the thing: in those areas, there's going to be a lot of hunters out there. A lot of these guys in pickup trucks out there who've done this a ton of times. Well, I'm pretty new at this, so I feel like I'm not really giving myself an advantage in that. So I'm trying this year to pick new spots, to find new areas, to go places that I wouldn't normally go or aren't as easy to get to really push myself into an opportunity that I hope will equate to an advantage. And so in this early season, October the 12th, the question is, where's everybody else going to be? And where should I be? Where can I get to? And how do I get there as quietly as possible? How do I get there without blowing the area because I'm bumping things or making a lot of noise or leaving my scent all over the place? That's hard to do. But, it's interesting because on this scouting trip, I had picked this spot that was about 1,200, 1,300 yards down the trail. And at about between 700 and 900 yards, I saw a lot more sign than I did 1,300 yards down the trail. And by the time I got down, like say a mile down the trail, I hardly saw any sign. And there was a point where I actually said, the best sign is behind us.
Or the best sign is still behind us. But I am seeing scat.
I mean, that's a red flag in my opinion. That's a clue that in hindsight that I'm thinking more about. The best sign is behind us. I probably should have gone back to that sign, spent my time there, and investigated off the trail more. But I kept pushing this day. I went about a mile out. I got really close. I got within 100 yards of the lake. This trail butts up to Lake Conroe, right? So I get down there. I did find some very interesting things down at that point.
We've got squirrel over here. Definitely deer trails back here, but there's a hiking path that comes along this way. Out that way. And they're not dropping acorns right now, but they have been dropping acorns. With a few spots where I'm seeing old acorns on the ground, which is probably why I'm seeing squirrels, which I really don't see very often. So we've got a few of the puzzle pieces here. A few. We need more. Like acorns dropping and deer standing at 15 yards broadside. We got water. We got chipmunks. Chipmunks means nuts. Nuts means food for the deer. So we got water and food. Let's browse. But I didn't see any deer scat back here. No deer scat, so. And no scrapes and no rubs. All the deer scat I saw was way up there.
Believe it or not, in 100,000 acres of pine forest, I hardly ever see a squirrel. It's incredible. You get out there into these massive sections of timber pine forest, some oaks, and you don't see squirrel, and you're like, where are all this squirrel? This is a giant forest. This place should be popping with squirrel. It's part of the clue, I think. I sat there for a little while. You never know, right? Yeah, I mean, maybe you'll catch a doe getting up and getting ready to move towards evening, but part of being a rookie hunter is this struggle with trying to make a wise decision. Maybe the Lord is trying to teach me patience. And I guess I'm not very patient because it sometimes it's difficult for me to force myself to sit in any spot for any period of time. I kind of like being up and moving. I like stalking. I like the concept of stalking more than I like the ambush. So I just decided after sitting there a while that I would get up and head back to where I saw more sign of the fresh scat and clear deer trails coming across that main trail, and set up over there until the sun goes down and just see what I see.
Saw lots of scat. Found some, looked like some acorns. Saw some squirrels. Found some water. Didn't find any deer. Nothing. Well, that's how that goes. Time to go home.
You know, the clock is ticking. It's October 12th and bow season has begun, and we're under a month now until gun season. And here's the trick in this particular piece of public land, this managed area. In the bow season, you can take 1 buck and 2 doe. But once gun season starts, you can only take a buck unless you have a special permit for an antlerless deer. And I applied, but I didn't get one this year. So I knew that as soon as gun season starts, I'm going to have to look for a buck only. It just seems like the odds are really stacked against me. Because let me tell you, last year I saw, I think, 1 buck in the woods, and it was a spiker. That's it. So I don't think I've ever seen a really good buck, with a bow in my hand out there. So that's truly difficult. So I know that rifle season's coming, and if I can take that doe now, then I will simply feel better about getting that buck. So for me, it's really important to try to maximize bow season where I can. So even though I didn't see anything this day or hear anything, I did feel like I learned some things anyway. It's a start, right? It's not wasted time. I did find some fresh scat. I found some very clearly defined deer trails. And I found an area where that traffic was obviously heavier than others, even though it wasn't in an area where I saw squirrels, for instance, and there certainly was no acorns. So clearly this is a travel corridor from one section to another. The only question still remains in my mind is, okay, which way is bedding, which way is feeding, and what are they feeding on? So these are still unanswered questions to me, and it becomes very difficult. But the sun was going down, and I needed to head back. So when I get home, what I do is I take all the data. Since I had marked off, I counted the paces on the trail. I knew where the scat was, and I knew where the trails were. I knew where I was down by the lake. I knew all that stuff. So I come back and I actually put it all into topo, and I actually mark all of my spots. And this helps me to now think about and process, all that information. To step back and look at the topo map from a bigger picture in hopes of trying to piece all of those puzzle pieces together and try to come up with a game plan for the next time I go out. But again, I think for me, as a rookie hunter, the biggest stressor is choices, trying to make a choice. You know, do you go back to this spot? Do you go scout another spot? You know, I don't know. This is the hard part for me, is what do I do next? What do I do next? I don't know. I just wish I had someone to tell me what to do next. I think it'd be easier. But I do have to make a choice, and we'll see what happens.